Have you ever promised yourself, I'll start tomorrow? Tomorrow arrives, and somehow, tomorrow becomes next week. The assignment sits untouched. The gym membership gathers dust. The book you wanted to read stays on the shelf. It's strange, isn't it? Because deep down, you already know what you should be doing. Nobody has to remind you. Nobody has to explain it. So why don't you just do it? For centuries, people believed procrastination was simply laziness, a lack of discipline, a weak character. But modern psychology tells a very different story, and the real reason might surprise you. Because procrastination isn't a problem with time, it's a problem with being human. To understand procrastination, we need to travel back nearly 200,000 years. Imagine you're living as one of the first humans. You're walking across the savannah. Suddenly, you hear movement in the grass. At that moment, your brain has two options. Option 1, continue thinking about improving your hunting tools. Option 2, run. The humans who stopped to think usually didn't survive. The ones who reacted immediately did. For thousands of generations, our brains evolved to prioritize immediate threats and immediate rewards. The future didn't matter nearly as much as the next 5 minutes. That ancient wiring still exists today, except the lions have changed. Now, the threats are emails, deadlines, taxes, exams, job interviews. Your brain still behaves like it's living in the Stone Age. The problem is, modern life asks us to prepare for events weeks, months, or even years away. Evolution never trained us for that. Think about what happens when you open your phone. Within seconds, you see something funny, something shocking, something new. Your brain gets a tiny reward, then another, and another. It's effortless. Now compare that to studying. You might spend 2 hours reading before feeling any sense of accomplishment. To your brain, the choice is obvious. One activity offers an immediate reward. The other promises a reward somewhere in the future. Our brains naturally discount future rewards. Psychologists call this temporal discounting. In simple terms, we value today more than tomorrow. That's why spending $20 today feels more satisfying than saving it for retirement. It's also why scrolling for 10 minutes somehow turns into 2 hours. Your brain isn't asking, what's best for my future? It's asking, what feels good right now? Here's something surprising. Researchers have found that procrastination usually isn't about avoiding work. It's about avoiding emotions. Think about the last task you kept postponing. Maybe it made you anxious. Maybe you were afraid of failing. Maybe you worried it wouldn't be perfect. Or maybe you simply didn't know where to start. Instead of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings, your brain looks for relief. Watching videos, cleaning your room, making coffee, checking notifications. These activities don't solve the original problem. They simply help you avoid feeling uncomfortable for a little while. That's why procrastination feels good at first, but only temporarily, because eventually the task is still waiting. Only now, you've added guilt to the equation. Have you ever noticed something strange? A project sits untouched for weeks, then suddenly, the night before it's due, you somehow become incredibly productive. Did your personality change overnight? Not really. What changed was the urgency. The deadline transformed a distant problem into an immediate one. Remember how our brains evolved? Immediate threats always take priority. As soon as tomorrow becomes today, your brain finally pays attention. That's why people often say, I work better under pressure. In reality, most people don't work better. They simply stop procrastinating because there's no time left to avoid the task. Pressure forces action, not perfection. One of the biggest myths is that successful people never procrastinate. They do. Writers, scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, even world-famous creators have admitted to delaying important work. The difference isn't that they never procrastinate. The difference is they don't let procrastination become their identity. They don't say, I'm just a lazy person. Instead, they recognize what's happening. They understand that procrastination is a psychological response. not a permanent personality trait, and that understanding changes everything, because you can't solve a problem until you understand what's actually causing it. If procrastination isn't laziness, then overcoming it isn't about becoming tougher or forcing yourself to suffer. It's about making it easier for your brain to begin. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting to feel motivated before they start. They tell themselves, I'll do it when I feel like it. But motivation is one of the least reliable emotions we have. Some days it's there, most days it isn't. The truth is, motivation usually doesn't come first. Action comes first. Then, once you see even a little bit of progress, motivation begins to catch up. That's why the hardest part of almost any task isn't finishing it, it's starting it. Psychologists even have a name for this phenomenon. Once we've started a task, our brains naturally want to complete it. An unfinished task stays active in our mind, making it easier to return to later. Starting creates momentum, and momentum is far more dependable than motivation. That's why breaking a huge project into smaller pieces works so well. If your goal is to write a 100-page book, your brain sees an impossible mountain. But if the goal is simply, open the document, suddenly there's almost no resistance. Then it becomes, write one sentence, then write one paragraph. Small actions don't just make the work easier, they make it feel safer. Another surprisingly effective strategy is removing decisions before they happen. Every time you ask yourself, should I work now? You're giving your brain another opportunity to say no. Instead, create a routine. Maybe every evening at 7 o'clock, you sit at your desk, not because you're inspired, but because that's simply what you do. Over time, habits begin replacing willpower, and habits consume far less mental energy than constantly negotiating with yourself. Your environment matters just as much. People often think productivity is all about self-control, but self-control is exhausting. If your phone is sitting next to you, buzzing every few minutes, you're asking your brain to win the same battle over and over again. It's much easier to remove the temptation entirely. Put the phone in another room. Close unnecessary tabs. Silence notifications. The less your brain has to resist, the more energy it has to focus. And perhaps the most important change is the way you talk to yourself. Stop asking, how am I going to finish all of this? That's a question your brain usually can't answer. Instead, ask, what's the smallest thing I can do in the next 5 minutes? Sometimes opening the document is enough. Writing one sentence is enough. Reading one page is enough. Putting on your running shoes is enough. Because the goal isn't to finish everything today. The goal is to make starting so easy that your brain has no reason to avoid it. Momentum is a powerful thing. Once something is moving, it's much easier to keep moving. And more often than not, the task you've been avoiding for days starts to feel manageable, just a few minutes after you've finally begun. Maybe procrastination was never about laziness. Maybe it's the result of an ancient brain, trying to survive in a world it was never designed for. A brain that values comfort over uncertainty, today over tomorrow, relief over responsibility. The next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it later, ask yourself one simple question. Am I avoiding the task, or am I avoiding the feeling that comes with it? Because sometimes the hardest part isn't doing the work, it's facing the emotion you've been running from all along. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson procrastination has to teach us. It's not a battle against time, it's a conversation between who you are today and who you hope to become tomorrow.